The Israel Defense Forces have taken operational control of the strategic Philadelphi corridor bordering Egypt and Rafah. At a press briefing, IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari claimed Hamas had used this corridor as a conduit for weapons into the Gaza Strip. The Philadelphi corridor, acting as a buffer zone, is about 330 feet wide in some sections and stretches along the Gazan side of the 13-kilometer border with Egypt. Earlier, IDF had announced the discovery of 20 Hamas tunnels within the corridor. Tensions between Egypt and Israel have increased since IDF took control of the Gazan side of the Rafah crossing 3 weeks ago in their campaign against Hamas. In a recent border incident near Rafah, an Egyptian soldier died in a confrontation involving Egyptian and Israeli forces. While the United States has condemned Israel's airstrikes on Rafah, it was done during an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. France, Russia, and China also voiced their condemnation. U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, said Washington was horrified by the incident, urging Israel to do more to protect the lives of civilians.
We are heartbroken and horrified by the deaths of dozens of Palestinian civilians and the more than 200 individuals who were seriously injured, including children, following an Israeli airstrike on May 26. Words cannot capture the sense of loss the families whose lives were shattered by this tragic incident feel. The Palestinians affected by the May 26 airstrikes have been displaced multiple times, heeding Israeli evacuation orders and seeking shelter in the camps impacted by this weekend's Israeli airstrikes. Israel said the civilian deaths were a mistake, potentially caused by secondary explosions, and that the strike was aimed at 2 senior Hamas terrorists who also died. We have urged Israel to do more to protect innocent Palestinian lives and to undertake a swift, transparent, and comprehensive investigation. As we have said before, Israel has a right to defend itself against Hamas, but Israel also has obligations to protect civilians. The fact that Hamas's leaders and fighters hide among civilians does not lessen the requirement for Israel to conduct its operations in accordance with international humanitarian law. Israel must do more to protect innocent Palestinians in Gaza.
On to those pro-Palestinian protests, which have continued this time in Brussels, with police deploying water cannons and tear gas to disperse the crowds. Demonstrators who were localized around the Israeli embassy ran from riot police after marching through the city with banners and placards bearing slogans such as Student Intifada. While chanting slogans, others were seen painting words on the facade of McDonald's restaurant. They claimed they were demonstrating for the Palestinian people who were massacred every day. There were also protests, this time in the German capital, Berlin. Thousands of Palestine supporters marched through the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans. According to local media reports, more than 4,500 people joined in the demonstrations, which had not been authorized by Berlin police. The action comes after a deadly Israeli airstrike that hit Rafah over the weekend. Well, Israel Defense Forces claimed responsibility for the strike, which reportedly killed around 45 people, according to Palestinian sources. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the incident as a tragic mistake due to a technical failure. Initially, the IDF claimed to have targeted a Hamas compound and killed 2 commanders. This incident occurred just 48 hours after the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to cease its military campaign in Rafah. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has found a friend in former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and former presidential hopeful Nikki Haley. Both met on Wednesday in Jerusalem. Netanyahu thanked Haley for her tremendous support. His comments come after the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan announced he was seeking arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on May 20.
You've been a tremendous supporter of our efforts and our struggle at all times, and especially in trying times like these. I think you have championed the one and simple thing that is absolutely essential, which is an Israeli victory. Now, there are some people who don't believe in an Israeli victory. They don't believe that we can achieve all our war aims, releasing all the hostages, defeating Hamas, and, of course, establishing an arrangement that Gaza will no longer be a threat to Israel. Well, we believe it, and we'll continue to do it, and we will achieve it. There are other people, like the prosecutor in The Hague, that seeks to handcuff us. And handcuffing us is handcuffing you too, because all democratic societies would be imperiled if the right to attack, to take out these terrorists who use civilians as a human shield is not challenged. All democracies are in peril. Well, I know that you stand with us, and I want you to know that that will not stop us either. So I thank you, and 80% of the American people who support Israel. It's a very broad consensus. And I was glad to see that there was also bipartisan support for putting sanctions on this scandalous ICC decision. And that's why I was, frankly, surprised and disappointed by what seems to be the American administration's backing off from this important decision.
A win for Israel is a win for America. Israel is fighting America's enemies. And I will say to you and to anybody in Israel, tune out the noise. You know what your job is. Let's get the hostages home. Let's beat Hamas. Let's make sure Lebanon knows not to try or do anything. What too many people don't know is that Hezbollah is striking every single day to Israel, and it's unacceptable. If this had happened to any other country, no other country would do anything less than what Israel's doing. And Israel continues to be so careful about every human life and everything that they do to protect that human life, that America needs to continue to be strong, but any country that is free and believes in democracy needs to be standing with you.